we have two scenarios in this regard. One that I find less likely, however, I have to say it because that I'm trying to be optimistic, and that is that these forces will come together and engage in an actual political dialogue in order to produce a sort of consensus through which they can write a constitution and rebuild the Syrian state and establish a diverse and inclusive democratic government in Syria. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, this is highly unlikely, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going down to pessimism, which I lean towards, unfortunately, these forces will most likely fight one another for power
Mm.
because these parties have different ideological denominations between normal Islamists and jihadists and some seculars even. So it's very interesting to see how they will interact with one another and how they will try to attain a consensus, which is highly unlikely. And we have historical precedents in other countries, for example. In Afghanistan, after the withdrawal of the Soviet Union in 1988, a couple of years later, the regime of President Mohammad Najibullah collapsed, and his main opponents were the Mujahideen factions, a multitude of them. And when they captured Kabul, within a few days, they were fighting one another.
Mm.
And Afghanistan moved into another phase of the civil war that paved the way for the rise of the Taliban in 1996. So I'm afraid Syria might face a very similar trajectory unless the international community has something to say about it, because all of these factions and all of these movements have international and regional patrons. So
Exactly.
if the international actors, namely Turkey, the United States, the European Union, Russia, and as well the support of the other Arab states, the instrumental Arab states in the region, maybe then we can speak of some sort of consensus. However, I do not know whether they can agree to that extent and whether they can influence events as much
Mm-hmm.
inside Syria. Because at the end of the day, Syria is a big country. Syria is a country with a very deep history, and it's a country with a very complex society as well, with a very ethnic and diverse, ethnically and religiously and sectarianly diverse population. So I'm very pessimistic, to be honest. I see Syria descending into another phase of civil war.
Mm-hmm.